Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Heather. I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, elementary and high school age. Today I'm going to be chatting all about how to prep for the holidays. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so I wrote down a bunch of steps of the things that I do in order to get prepared for the holidays. And the first one will come as no surprise if you have been watching my YouTube videos or reading my website for any length of time, and that is to first grab yourself a holiday notebook. This is my notebook from the past several years. I am moving into this notebook this year, and I've been keeping a holiday notebook, I think, since I had Emma, so about 16 years now. And the reason that I have a holiday notebook, I've talked about this in a couple other places as well. It's mainly so that I can keep track of what I've done in the past so that A, I don't repeat myself, and B, I have notes for things that I have done in the past. Now, I've already started my new notebook for the holiday season. So this video is coming a little bit later than when I actually start prepping for the holidays. The holidays for me kind of start with Lucy's birthday at the end of October, and then it goes Lucy's birthday, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Advent, Christmas, and it is a very, very busy time in our home. It's one of the reasons that we take off from Thanksgiving to New Year's from our homeschool and do some other things instead. I'll talk about that in a later video, I'm sure. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is just grab a notebook. It doesn't have to be a giant notebook, as long as it is something that you can refer to easily. I like to have a separate notebook. This is just one of those teeny tiny notebooks from Simplified, and this new one that I'm moving into is kind of like an A5 size, maybe a little bit larger than A5, from Cultivate What Matters. They're inexpensive, nice quality notebooks, and I always have them on hand in my closet, so I like to use those. But any, one subject notebook from Target will also work. I would recommend that you keep it for a few years so that you have it to refer back to what you've done in the past, as well as what you need to change or whatever. It is a great place to just keep everything holiday related. The next step is going to be writing a yes and no list. You need to really understand what you want out of the holiday season, and you need to kind of make some decisions ahead of time as to the traditions that you want to do, the things that you are definitely going to say yes to, and the things that you really want to say no to. Taking the time before those asks is so valuable, because once you've written it down, you've kind of solidified it in your mind, and you've given yourself permission to say yes or to say no. I talk about yes and no lists everywhere. I have one for my homeschool, I have one for my goals, and I have one for our holiday season. And it does change. There are different things that we do each year. There is more energy some years and less energy other years. So it really depends on the season that you are in, the season of life that you are in, as to what you want to include on those lists. But when you take that time ahead of time to make the list, you don't run into decision fatigue, and you have given yourself permission to say yes and to say no, and that's really, really valuable. So after you have your notebook and your yes and no list, which I recommend you put in the notebook to remind you, it's always at the forefront of your mind because you're in and out of this notebook the entire holiday season, you're going to want to figure out which traditions you want to continue with this year. Now, that can mean starting new traditions, it can mean skipping traditions that you've done in the past, it can be the traditions that you do year after year. Whatever they are, write them down so that you can start to get a handle on what those traditions are. You want to make sure that you have the supplies that you need and any extra things relating to that tradition. So for us, a couple of examples are, we like to do a thankfulness tree around Thanksgiving, and oftentimes you can find those at Hobby Lobby or at the Target dollar spot, or you can go on Pinterest and make your own. In years past, I have cut out little leaves from like red and orange and green and brown construction paper, and I have the kids write what they're thankful for, and then we'll put it on a larger poster board that I've drawn a tree on. Not very well, I'm not a great artist, but it is something that we have done in the past. If you don't want to purchase already made one. So making sure that I have those supplies or some way to get that done is number one. Number two, Advent is a huge season in our home. I tend to order Advent calendars early so that I can get the ones that I want. They have kind of exploded over the past 5 years, I would say. When my kids were little, I would do what I called Advent bags, and it was mainly because my older two were such early risers, so it gave them a little craft or activity to do first thing in the morning, and a little chocolate, because who doesn't need a little chocolate first thing in the morning, and their Bible verse for the day. And it was a very easy way for me to have something for my littles to do. And so I would make sure that I had those little brown paper lunch bags, and all through November they would decorate a bag pretty much each day with crayons and stickers, and then in December I would fill up those little bags and set them out on the table for them each morning. But now I do purchase a lot of Advent calendars just because it's a little bit easier for me, and I found a lot of fun ones. I do have a whole video talking about the Advent calendars we are using this year. If you're interested, I will leave that linked in the description box. But it's not just the Advent calendars, it's making sure we have the Advent candles that we use. We get a kit and create beeswax candles for our Advent candles each year, making sure that I have any Advent resources or Bible studies that we're going to be using during the season. A lot of times we do reuse things, but once in a while we get some new stuff. Again, I have another video with the Advent resources we're using this year. My dog is barking. I will be right back. So whatever traditions you plan to do during this holiday season, make sure that you write them down, and then make sure that you have the supplies that you need for that particular tradition. All right, then the next step is to take a trip around your house. And the reason that I say this is for a number of different questions that you kind of have to answer as you're walking through your house. I will read them to you. The first is, where will you be decorating and what are you using for decorations? So you need to kind of map out where that stuff is going to go. I know that for me, when we decorate, we end up having to move furniture around. So just understanding what needs to be cleaned up or moved out of specific rooms is very helpful for me. Then you want to check and see if you need to replace any decorations. For us, it's almost always Christmas lights. I don't know why we buy these Christmas lights that are supposed to last for so long, and for some reason every year the light bulbs go out. We cannot change the right fuse or whatever. I don't know. They're almost disposable to me at this point, even though they are very expensive. So make sure that any decorations that you have those. If you need to replace them, you take the time ahead of time to go replace them. It's so much easier to get the stuff now before you're trying to decorate your tree and you realize, oh, all of the lights don't work. So take a couple of minutes, go pull out some of your Christmas stuff, plug in your lights to see if they work, make sure that you have all of the decorations that you want for the season. Take some time to go walk around Hobby Lobby if you do want to get new decorations. I don't buy a ton of decorations each year. Mainly we have our Christmas trees and I don't do a lot of extra stuff. My mom does like to get me some garlands and other things, which I really appreciate because I wouldn't necessarily go out and purchase those things on my own. So just get an idea of what you are going to be decorating, where you're going to be decorating, what furniture you may need to move, and if you need to replace anything. The next step is kind of relating to that moving furniture and tidying aspect of prepping your home, and that is to declutter. And I know that a lot of us do big decluttering projects, usually at the beginning of the year or in the spring for spring cleaning, but this is a perfect time to start to think about what you can get rid of, especially as you are making room for presents that are inevitably going to come into the house or other things that are going to enter your home over the next couple of months. So getting rid of some of the extra is always helpful. If it's good quality, donate it, where you can give some of these things to people that need them. Just going through your home and kind of understanding how much stuff you have, how much you're going to want to bring in new, and what you can get rid of now to make space for anything new that you will be bringing in. It's also a great time to kind of think about whether or not you want to allow a lot of new stuff into your home, and so starting to think about lists for grandparents and everything it's also a great time for that. And then the last step in this taking a walk around your home is to look at your gift bag and wrapping situation. Do you need tissue paper? Do you need new gift bags? Are there sales going on at some random store right now where you can pick up some wrapping for Christmas or whatever holiday you need wrapping for? Grab it now so that you have it when you need it. I know that oftentimes I will think, oh, we have tons of tissue paper. And then I go to wrap presents and we have zero tissue paper and we can't find any tissue paper because I am one of those people that waits until the very last minute to wrap presents. I know I shouldn't, but I do. And even though I hate it, I kind of secretly love doing all of the wrapping on Christmas Eve. It's kind of fun to do that. Very tiring, but still kind of fun. Not everybody is like that. That's totally okay. It's kind of like a procrastination thing / it is the last possible second that I can do it. So I have to get it done. Procrastination. That's kind of how it works for me. Then after you've kind of prepped your house, looked at your house, figured out your traditions, the next step for me is to think about food. And food is such a big part of the holidays for me. My mom always did such beautiful spreads for Thanksgiving as well as Christmas Eve. We used to have a big open house on Christmas Eve, which I have done several years. I haven't done it in quite a while. Since we've moved into this new house, I have not done it, but it is something that we have a lot of traditions around. We have a lot of foods that we only do at Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And so making sure that I have those lists, that I know exactly what I need to buy, because some of the ingredients are not things that we normally have on hand, obviously. Some of the things only are available around this time of year in our stores. So making sure that I have those lists is very important, as well as making sure I have like a turkey pan, making sure I buy the right number of bags of cranberries for cranberry sauce and cranberry relish and cranberry bread. We're big on cranberries here. And then, I make homemade dressing for Thanksgiving, so I bake my own bread and then make homemade croutons. It's a whole ordeal. I don't know why I do it, but it's one of my favorite parts of Thanksgiving. That's why I continue to do it. So remembering how many loaves of bread I need to make. I've been doing this now for 13 years, and every year I have forgotten how many loaves of bread I make, which is why I need that notebook and I write it down so that I remember, okay, this is the number of loaves I need to make for bread. And this year I need to get a new dough hook because last year my dough hook for my KitchenAid mixer, the coating started to come off while I was making bread for Thanksgiving. So last year I ended up having to run out at the last minute to buy stuffing mix for stuffing or dressing. I don't know what you call it. We don't put it in the turkey, so I guess technically it's called dressing, but I still call it stuffing because that's what we've always called it. So anyways, I need to make sure that I get a dough hook. I have to write that on my list because I keep thinking about it but not writing it down. So this is also a reminder that anytime something comes up during the day, write it down. It's very similar for me having a brain dump notebook, which is it's over there, my Lightstrom notebook. When it is holiday related, stop and either make a note in your phone. It doesn't have to be a physical notebook. For me, a physical notebook works better, but it can be a note in your phone, or stop what you're doing, go grab your notebook and write it down. I keep my notebook on my desk, usually during this entire season. So if something comes to me, a gift idea, a tradition idea, a trip that I want to do for a specific light show or something like that, I write it down so that I know that I've written it down and I can think about it later when I actually sit down to work on holiday planning. The next step that I have in prepping my home and getting myself ready for the holidays is to think about gifts and cards. Who are we buying gifts for? Who are we sending cards to? Are we even sending cards this year? Am I going to take a picture for the cards? I've said this a couple of times. The past few years, I've taken pictures of the kids and I've purchased cards, not picture cards, but cards that I would like write in and then stick a picture in for certain people. And I have not sent cards any of those years. And honestly, I probably should just send one card this year with like 4 pictures in it. That would probably cost a lot in postage, but it is something that I'm considering because I have envelopes of Christmas pictures. Well, some of them are back here from my kids that I've never sent out to my family. So anyways, making sure that you have a list of who you're buying gifts for is very helpful. Same thing with the cards. Who are you sending cards to if you're sending cards? And what have you done in previous years? This is one of the biggest reasons that I started keeping a holiday notebook to begin with, because I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I do not remember what I have purchased them for birthdays or Christmases. And so making sure that I have it written down is incredibly helpful so that I'm not buying the same thing for them year after year. I think there have been a couple of years where I have purchased very similar items for my nieces and nephews, and it's not that the gift is not heartfelt, but it's like, oh, I think that this will be awesome, and I'm like, this is going to be a great gift, and then I get it and I get everything put together, and then I'm like, I think that I actually already did this 2 years ago, and now I'm doing it again. Well, at this point, I've already purchased everything, so we're going with it. So that is a reminder that when you keep track of this stuff in a holiday notebook, you can refer back to it. So I started making sure that I add in all of the gifts that I'm purchasing for different family members in this holiday notebook. It used to just be food related and things that I needed to buy for the kids or for my husband, but now it is for everybody so that I don't slip up and make mistakes like that. Plus, this is also good for an idea list for birthdays as well as Christmas. It doesn't just have to be Christmas gifts. It can be ideas that you think of throughout the year and just writing them down if you notice that somebody has a particular interest or you see something out and about that you think would be a good fit for a particular person. Writing it down, again, either a note in your phone, which is what I often do during the other months of the year. I'll write it on a note in my phone and then eventually transfer that into my holiday notebook. But just getting ideas ahead of time, it makes gift buying so much easier. For me personally, it's hard for me to buy gifts before we celebrate Lucy's birthday. I used to be really good about starting presents in the summer because I would do a lot of handmade gifts. And so in order to actually complete them, I had to start them in July. But as my kids have gotten older and then I had Lucy, it was very challenging for me to even wrap my head around Christmas planning before Thanksgiving. It just shifted. I was no longer an early planner. I was just Thanksgiving, Black Friday through Christmas Eve, Christmas planner. Having those idea lists ahead of time is very, very helpful, and it helps take a little bit of stress off of you because you're not having to think in the moment, oh, what should I get them? I know I thought about this one thing a couple of months ago, but I didn't write it down and now I can't remember. So those lists are very helpful. And then if you are doing handmade gifts, there are all kinds of different handmade gifts. Not all of them take a lot of time. There's a lot of food related gifts that you can give, and often Christmas baking is one of my favorite things, and we tend to give those gifts for my husband's work and to family friends and such. So figuring out what handmade gifts you want to do and whether or not you have what you need on hand is another part. Now, if you're going to be knitting or sewing projects for like toys and such, which is what I used to do, I would knit sweaters, or I used to knit gnomes for my kids and my nieces and such. So those types of things take a little bit longer, and so you may want to start planning earlier. Every year at the end of Christmas, at the end of the Christmas season, I say, next year I'm going to start earlier. I never actually do, but I always think about it. But if you are a handmade gifts person, starting earlier is very helpful. Obviously, it's not too late now. We're just in the middle of November, and so plenty of time for a lot of different options for handmade gifts. Just make sure you start soon. And then the last step that I do as I'm prepping for the holidays is plan for rest. And this kind of circles back to the beginning when you think about the traditions and your yes and no list and the things that you want to do throughout the holiday season. Make sure that you have some white space in your calendar. This is partly because it is a perfect storm of when sickness can come right around the holidays with all of the rich and sweet foods, and then, not a lot of exercise and everybody kind of being cooped up indoors, especially in our area where it's cold. You're more apt to get sick. So just taking the time to rest, also leaving some white space. So if there is some fun activity that you want to do as a family that comes up last minute, you have the space to do that. It's a little bit harder this year because Thanksgiving is so late, and so you have fewer days between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I think one full weekend less. It's a little bit crazy that we're going to be moving right from Thanksgiving into Advent a couple of days later. So making sure that you plan for some rest is going to serve you much better in the long run than planning every single minute of your time. Take time to enjoy the season. You do not have to do all of the things. You can if that's what you want to do, but it's also okay to just kind of relax and hang out and watch Christmas movies and do some Christmas baking at home with your kids and have a relaxing, fun time that way. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. This is one that I've been thinking about doing for a little while now. I don't do a ton of decorating or big parties or anything like that. I try to keep things relatively simple and focus on the big traditions that are really important to my family. And so think about that. Sit down and make your yes and no list and figure out what is most important during this season for you and your family. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like more help and encouragement around home and homeschooling and goals, I would love for you to come check out my membership community. We're going to be working a lot on setting up 2025 goals through the month of December. I would love for you to join us. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.